It's 10 a.m. in Georgia, where we are following breaking news. Judge Scott McAfee has ruled Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis can continue to prosecute former President Trump's election interference case. But she has a choice to make. The judge tells Willis if she stays, Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade must go. Wade is the man with whom she had a romantic relationship with and hired to join the case. We want to bring in CBS News campaign reporter Katrina Kaufman and CBS News Justice Department reporter Robert Legare to break down the decision. Thank you both for joining us. Katrina, let's reset for the audience. What does this ruling mean for this election interference case?
It means that the case can move forward. Either the district attorney, Fani Willis, or special prosecutor Nathan Wade, who she had a relationship with, have to step away, though, because the judge says while he finds no actual conflict of interest here that would fully dismiss the prosecution's office or the charges, there's still an appearance of impropriety over this case that could really threaten the public perception of it. And the judge is really concerned about the integrity of the case, the integrity of the justice system, and his own integrity. I was struck by one thing he said on a radio program, I think it was a week ago, and he talked about how he has 2 children, and in the future, when he's talking to them about the cases that he presided over, he said, I want to look them in the eye and tell them that I played it straight and I did the best I could. And he really took this decision very seriously. This has almost become a trial within a trial, this trial about Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. But really, the issue here is a very important election interference case against Donald Trump and the other defendants, and that now will be moving forward.
Yeah, so speaking of that, timing is significant here. Robert, could we see this case happen then before the November election? What's the likelihood?
I'm never one to engage in predictions like that, particularly in cases as complex as this. There are a lot of defendants, a lot of high-profile defendants, and some interesting, legal arguments that are still being made. The former president put out a statement today saying that they're going to proceed on legal grounds in this matter. So it remains to be seen whether or not this is the end of this specific question. And so really whether or not this goes to trial or not in November remains to be seen. I did want to make one point concurrent with what Katrina was talking about in terms of how the judge saw this in relation to the court itself. He says that, quote, when this danger goes uncorrected, so the danger that he sees of this potential impropriety, it undermines the legitimacy and moral force of our already weakest branch of government. And actually goes on to quote the Federalist Papers by saying that the judiciary's judgment will be obeyed only so long as the public respects it. And so that is, from the 1700s, he's going all the way back there to say that the judiciary's power comes not from the military, comes not from law enforcement officers, but from the public's respect of the institution itself. And so he is saying that this conflict of interest, or this perceived, conflict of interest directly undermines that. And so now he gives them that binary choice.
So, Katrina, we were speaking to Jessica Levinson earlier in the last hour, and we wanted to get a sense of the timing of what next steps are going to look like in the days and weeks ahead. Anne Marie asked whether or not this case would be brought before a jury before the election. But what happens just in the immediate? What do you think will happen just in the immediate?
In the immediate, we're going to be looking for either Fani Willis or Nathan Wade to be stepping aside. I think it's a very clear choice that it should be Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. And then also Trump's team has made it clear that they want to appeal this ruling. So I think that we will be seeing that very soon as well.
Earlier Nicole Killian was talking to an attorney for one of the defendants, and he mentioned something called an interlocutory appeal, which is an appeal in the middle of a case, which I had not heard of before. I assume that there's going to be an appeal, but I didn't think that you could appeal something before the case is done and over with. I don't know if either of you could speak to that as sort of a tool and how that might be used with this case.
I mean, we're already seeing that with the D.C. election interference case. This appeal that's going on with the issue of immunity is also an interlocutory appeal that's happening before the case has even gone to trial. So that's very possible we could see that with this case as well. It's clearly a strategy of former President Trump.
And Robert, no doubt you have perhaps already seen this statement from former President Trump's lawyers, which reads, in part, while respecting the court's decision, we believe that the court did not afford appropriate significance to the prosecutorial misconduct of Willis and Wade, including the financial benefits, testifying untruthfully about when their personal relationship began, as well as Willis's extrajudicial MLK church speech. But it would strike that most ordinary viewers who watched, because we ran the full testimonies of the case on CBS News and other outlets, that the public and the potential jury pool did get a good sense of whether or not there was prosecutorial misconduct, including those financial benefits, because they all talked about them. So is this just a way, because this is what they're paid to do, to release a statement that says that they disagree, obviously, with the ruling from the judge, but is there any validity at all, in your mind, to what they're suggesting here?
It's important to remember that when a jury is sat in a trial, right, they're looking at the strength of the evidence that the prosecutors bring, as well as the credibility of the prosecutors, and then the credibility of the defense and any arguments or holes that they can poke in the case. And so, as we know, prosecutors' goal are not to bring charges, but to get convictions on charges. And so that is what we see here underlying in this decision as well, and then what we see in the statement from the former president's attorneys. They know that the prosecutor's goal is to prosecute and to get a conviction. And so anything short of that is a loss for a prosecutor. And so, you know, when a jury then has to sit and decide the credibility of evidence, the credibility of the people presenting the evidence on both sides. And so, you know, I'm sure that when this case goes to trial, if this case goes to trial before the election, there will be questions about, did you watch this testimony? How aware are you how aware of these allegations are you? And what is your opinion on them?
And we should remind people, I mean, this particular case is so far from the central argument here. The primary case that we are talking about is an election interference case. This is so far removed from it. Katrina, can we just sort of remind people of what the central case is and what the arguments were about Fani Willis and her relationship with Nathan Wade?
Of course. I mean, the central case here is about Trump and originally 18 co-defendants interfering with the 2020 election in Georgia. The issue with Fani Willis and Nathan Wade is that one of the defendants accused them of having a romantic relationship. And the bigger issue was they said that Fani Willis financially benefited from that relationship, that she hired Nathan Wade as a special prosecutor on this team, and that he took her on extravagant vacations, spent state money on her, and as a result, both of them have a vested financial interest in this trial and making it a sprawling racketeering case, in prosecuting it against so many defendants and in moving it forward. And that was really what they said was the issue here.
All right, Katrina, Kaufman, Robert Legare, thank you so much, guys, for jumping in there, reading those documents so quickly and digesting it for us. Thank you.